Greetings, kindred. So here we are at the Mercury Retrograde. Don't look at this chart at the moment. This is the 1212 portal when Mercury went into pre-shadow. I just wanted to start with this chart first. But today is the 29th of December. And today is the day that Mercury actually goes into or begins his retrograde journey. So it's been stationary up until this point since the 1212 portal. And that began at 1:45 here in GMT time zone. Now, how I know that is because Mercury starts his retrograde actually at 27 degrees on the 29th. Today is at 27 degrees, and he will retrograde back to 11 degrees. So this is where his pre-shadow would have started on the 1212 portal. Now, as Mercury went into pre-shadow, he was in conjunction with Venus. Now, Mercury at 11 degrees, Venus at 5 degrees. I mean, we were really shifting our minds and our focus at this time, probably on the lead up to Christmas, trying to stay positive, trying to stay focused. But as Mercury goes into retrograde in Sagittarius, it is a little bit of a scatterbrain. Do you know what I mean? It's like we can't focus, we can't get our head around things. And, so I think this was very frustrating because, like, especially with this opposition here with Pluto, the Black Moon, and the Moon. So the Black Moon Lilith and the Moon were conjunct at the time Mercury went into pre-shadow here in the sign of Cancer. Now, the Black Moon Lilith in Cancer, it does show that our weakness when it comes to our dependence on others or our dependence on our governments or our local network, Mercury actually retrograding in Sagittarius. I mean, it is really considered the retrograde of the lost soul. So as much as we get all scatterbrained, we can't focus properly, there's an overload of information coming in when Mercury's retrograding through Sagittarius. And, there is this quincunx with the Black Moon Lilith, the Moon, and Mercury and Venus, or more Venus, actually. So I feel like, there was a lot of frustration erupting because, like, there was, like, hard to keep focused on things or, retain information, basically. And this opposition, like I said, this can be a little bit mind-blowing. The effect of this can be a little bit mind-blowing, or we can suffer from absent-mindedness, or we don't want to face up to it. We don't want to face up to what we're truly dependent on because, like, maybe we feel we can't get out of certain situations that dependency is needed. But also, when Mercury's in retrograde in Sagittarius, we are dependent on others for guidance. So we do tend to follow a narrative, and we'll get more into that in a minute. So I think at the moment, I did want to say this. I did actually want to do this video beforehand. Apologies for not being able to. The lead up to Christmas, I was undergoing all these traits myself, and it's been an extremely busy time. The lead up to Christmas, the lead up to the new year. It's like, wow, I'm sure many of us have been running around in circles or, we've just been very kind of out there. Do you know what I mean? So, I actually feel that we definitely will need some grounding with Mercury retrograding through Sagittarius. Let's get into today's chart, actually. So here we are with the Mercury retrograde chart. So, Mercury actually starts his retrograde here in the GMT time zone at 9:32. So I'm recording this around about 12:30, 1ish in the afternoon. So Mercury's already began his retrograde here in London, and wherever you are in the world and what time it is, I think you can just convert this time into your own time zone. So you can look that up on the world clock. So as we can see, Mercury started his retrograde at 27 degrees today. And he will retrograde back, like I said, to 11 degrees where the sun is at present. So, you know, and it's really strange because when we look at the, when the Mercury retrograde ends, we'll see that the sun will catch up again with the Mercury retrograde. It's really strange how the sun and Mercury are working together throughout this retrograde, to be honest, because 11 is the number of self-mastery. And, 27 adds up to 9. So this is like, closure, an ending of a cycle. But as we can see here, Mercury is kind of in conjunction with Venus and in conjunction with Pluto, but more aligned with Venus at the moment. They're both at 27 degrees. So this little stellium is showing us that, mentally, we're a little bit stuck. Do you know what I mean? Maybe stuck on, or our focus is too much on our finances. And I really do feel this is more financial or more about, our joys in life and how we're not really, things are just not the same, are they? Since 2019, with certain events that have happened around the world, it's created a lot of stress, a lot of burden with Pluto. And, it's been a lot for us to get our heads around. So, there's a lot of absent-mindedness going on here and a lack of focus. And maybe we would rather just enjoy our time and not be focused on things. Do you know what I mean? If we can actually, adopt that way of thinking, I think we're a bit better off at the moment. But if we're struggling to focus on stuff right now, it's very, very difficult. But, the one way we can express what we're thinking, because our minds are going to be overloaded with information right now, with this little stellium going on here, especially in opposition to the goddess Pallas, which is all about the mind and recognizing patterns and, seeking justice. Do you know what I mean? But in Gemini, Pallas can tend to be a little bit of a scatbrain as well. So, and the goddess Pallas is in quincunx to Saturn, 22 degrees in Capricorn. Now, this is all about man-made systems. Do you know what I mean? So, what we're actually picking up on mentally, what we're actually picking up on doesn't seem to align with the man-made narratives. Do you know what I mean? Or what we're actually seeing in the man-made systems. So I feel it's thrown us a little bit out of focus. It's like we can't quite get to grips with why we are feeling a certain way, but we can't get our heads around it. We can't put our fingers on it. That's what I really feel is going on here in this chart. So I definitely feel grounding techniques like going out, putting your feet on concrete or on grass. I know it's cold at the moment, but as long as you're in good health, or even just go outside and put your hands on a concrete wall, because I feel that this is very high energy and there's not a lot of earth energy here. I mean, we have the goddess Ceres in Virgo, and here in the UK, oh no, it's in Scorpio. What was I seeing? Oh yeah, we have Mars in Taurus. So Mars is in retrograde in Taurus. So, I can't really see that this is stable, because this is quite a frustrating energy in itself when Mars is retrograde in Taurus, because Mars is a fast-paced energy, Taurus is a slow-paced energy. So, there's a lot of frustration going on here. So, we've got Saturn in Capricorn, which can be very grounding, but again, there's a lot more fire energy, water energy. Look at that fire, air, fire. I mean, this is all fire here. I've got our ascendant here in the UK in an earth sign, but really for the amount of water, air and fire, I don't feel this grounding energy showing up in the chart is really strong enough. Do you know what I mean? And like Mercury retrograding through the sign of Sagittarius, like I said, it's kind of like symbolic of the lost soul, where our minds can tend to be all over the place, very disorganized. So there is definitely a need here to be centered and focused. And, we may be very disorganized at the moment, but really, the main thing that I'm seeing here is an information overload. And, sifting through what is superficial and what is real. Now, I know there is a lot being revealed when it comes to information at the moment on a global level. So it's really up to us to sift through, because there's two sides to a coin, and there has been for the last couple of years. Do you know what I mean? There's like two sides of a coin, but one is realistic and one isn't. Do you know what I mean? So, and it doesn't mean to say, I mean, sometimes the coins can flip, so it's really down to us to get through this Mercury retrograde, because I really do feel from what I've seen, once we get through this Mercury retrograde, I mean, Mercury retrograde will end on the 18th of January, but then we will be in post-shadow until February. We're going to look at that chart, the post-shadow chart. And from what I'm seeing, the post-shadow is going to be just as strong as the retrograde itself, as was the pre-shadow. So, we're going into February with this lack of focus, with this lack of direction, with all this information like coming out. And it's a lot. It's a lot for us to get our heads around. And it's a lot for us to get it, like when information comes out, we need to get it kind of organized in our minds, don't we? And we need to have that feeling of resonance with the organization of the information. So I hope I'm making sense here. And, so we can tend to follow the status quo because we can't think straight. And we can tend to jump on bandwagons when we can't get our focus straight. Do you know what I mean? And this is very much a scatterbrained energy. And, we have the black moon in opposition to our sun. Now, this is quite a depressing energy. It's like an eclipse, really, when the black moon Lilith either opposes the sun or conjuncts the sun. It's a very, very kind of eclipsing dark energy. And, again, it's like we need to, one, get grounded with number 4, get grounded in our darkness, and master ourselves, bring the light in to focus. But, this is also part of a grand crossing, so we've got the moon just crossing over Jupiter here. Now, this can be like, the guru or the false prophet, so to speak. It can represent the false prophet. especially in Pisces. It's very nebulous in Pisces, and we need to watch out for that. We really do need to not take anything on board at the moment. Follow the information, or it's going to be very hard to absorb the information. I think it could be a little bit out there, whatever's coming to light. But there is like this element of, and I'm going to get more into that in a while. I don't want to get into that too much now, okay? But all I'm saying, there is definitely a need for us all to get grounded, or to work on grounding techniques, at least for the next month or two. And, with Mercury conjunct Pluto, I mean, this is really overbearing. I mean, there's a lot of deceit there as well, and it's definitely a narrative being put out there to really, control the way we think, but we can also use this conjunction in an investigative way, in a research way. So rather than just follow the status quo, we really need to do our own investigation into things. And a lot of it will come from our instincts, or if we're kind of like work in the psychic field, or, we have telepathic abilities, anything along those lines, we won't feel right with what's being put out there. Now, I feel a lot of what's being put out there is the truth, but then I feel it's always being counteracted. Do you know what I mean? So this can be either on a personal level or on a global level. So we just really need to have our wits around us for the next 2 months. And please do not sign any contracts. This is the worst time. The next 2 months will be the worst time to sign into any contract, and unless it's a contract that's been ongoing for some time, and you've done all your research, you've done all your reading, and you know where you're at. Because right now it's really hard to stay focused and directed with this Mercury retrograde and all the aspects that go with it. And, the grand crosses do represent, no matter what road we go down, we always seem to end up in the same place. And, we've got Chiron, the moon and Jupiter, the goddess Juno and Neptune, all at one corner of this grand cross. So this is like the Messiah complex, traditional values and fantasy. Zero with Neptune, 0 degrees Pisces, we can be a little bit too out there. And that, with Chiron just a little bit away, it can lead to opening up some old, deep wounds. Do you know what I mean? So we really need to watch that, with the Black Moon Lilith here, which is all about our lessons in life, and with the Black Moon Lilith in Gemini here, as Mercury goes into retrograde, I mean, this is all about our identity, getting grounded in our own identity, coming to terms with our own authenticity and following our own minds, So this is what we need to be mastering. And I think the best way to actually get some focus, or get some information that makes sense to us, is like whatever thoughts, because there's going to be loads of different conversations running around in our minds. Write them down, make poems, write songs, sing them out. We can get clarity through creative expression in any of those modes. Do you know what I mean? Writing, singing, keeping a journal, of all our thoughts. And then when this Mercury retrograde ends, we can read through them because we'll have a lot more clarity then. We can read through them and take the bits that actually we resonate with and dismiss the rest. Do you know what I mean? I think that's the best way to deal with this Mercury retrograde. So, many of us will just want to enjoy this time. It's coming up to, the new year. I know a lot of people celebrate the new year. I mean, I do to a point because I always look forward to the following year and what's up and coming. It's always a fresh start, isn't it? Yeah, so to me, the true new year begins at the March equinox when the sun completes his cycle, his journey. Yeah, so I think I've actually covered everything, so it's going to be very hard as well to put our thoughts into words with these aspects going on with the Mercury retrograde. And again, I will refer back to keeping a journal, writing some poetry, writing songs, singing out loud and recording ourselves. Do you know what I mean? Or speaking out loud and recording ourselves. And again, listening to them at a later date. But it's so important right now that we keep grounded as well, keep our 2 feet on the ground. And I've already given, some solutions where we can be able to do that, like with hands on a concrete wall, feet on the concrete floor, or on grass. Do you know what I mean? So either grounding or earthing, either or either, whatever's available to you, really. So we will have a full moon in Gemini on the 6th of January before Mercury retrograde ends. Now, I'm just doing the Mercury retrograde at the moment. I will do a full moon video separately. So Mercury retro will end on the 18th of January at 13:13, actually, here in the GMT time zone. Now, remember, as Mercury retrograde ends, the post shadow will begin. So as Mercury retrograde ends, he will be at 11 degrees in Sagittarius. Now, this was where his pre-shadow started on the 12-12 portal. And he will still be in opposition to the goddess Pallas, actually. So still a little bit of disfocus. Do you know what I mean? But we've also got this yod with the black moon Lilith in sextile to Mars. Now, to me, this energy can be very kind of sensual, very sexual energy. And it's very masculine as well with Mars in Taurus, but also very feminine. But it's got this quincunx aspect to Mercury as his retrograde ends. So, be careful of getting involved in relationships and thinking they're more than what they are. That's what I would say. Do you know what I mean? And, when Mercury's in retrograde, it's a good time to go over old ground and review things, but it's not really good to like get committed, or it's not good for commitments of any kind. And I mean commitments when it comes to contracts, but commitments when it comes to relationships as well. I mean, I wouldn't really advise to get married under a Mercury retrograde, but then it does depend on the Mercury retrograde itself. But this particular one, I wouldn't recommend that. And we've also got this T square towards Mercury. So we've got the goddess Juno conjunct Jupiter. Now, this is husband and wife in opposition to the goddess Ceres in Virgo. And they're both making squares towards Mercury. Now, Mercury's under a lot of pressure at the moment. All his joys in life, I just feel like there's going to be a lot of pressure probably on marriages, you know what I mean? Maybe there is a little bit of waywardness or, you know, infidelity going on. And, you know, it's causing a lot of disruption. And, you know, I don't want everyone to get paranoid about their relationships, do you know what I mean? Because this will only affect certain people. But I would say on a global level, it's more about our desires, you know, our desires, our comfort zones, you know, maybe our sense of security that we're dependent on becomes quite disruptive. The good thing here is, though, is Mercury will be in trine to Uranus and the North Node. Now, to me, it's almost like the conversations in our head now are aligning with our intuition, you know, and we can actually get a little bit more of a grip on our focus, on our direction. And it's very good, actually. I mean, this is really tapping into universal consciousness. So even though all this pressure is being put on Mercury, it's pushing us into a higher consciousness, you know, like that universal oneness. So this is really good. So whatever pressure we are going through when Mercury retrograde comes to an end, it is really pushing us into more a universal consciousness. But, you know, because it's in square to Chiron and Jupiter, I would say, you know, it's still a little bit difficulty to gain full clarity. We're still having problems in, like, you know, expressing our thoughts, you know what I mean? Having that conversation. You know, we're still kind of under restriction. And but we're recognizing about the control issues. We're recognizing those issues as the Mercury retrograde ends. So remember, as I said, in Mercury retrograde, that Messiah complex and people trying to change our way of thinking, you know, doing a little bit of mind control. I think we get clarity that that's actually occurring as Mercury retrograde ends. But it's still hard for us to, like, verbalize that. Do you know what I mean? And I think what it is whoever's putting out this information, it's almost like, you know, it's not practical. And we are actually feeling that. We're actually recognizing that whatever these beautiful ideas that are being put out there are not practical. And there's definitely a lack of realism there. And we can see where they're being unrealistically optimistic. And, you know, it's all based on pride and ego. So, you know, if you are confused, you know, whoever it is you're dealing with in your life, whether it's like in the media or whether it's on a one-to-one in your personal life, if they're coming with ego and they're coming with, like, you know, narrow-mindedness, then, you know, I think that's the culprit, really, at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? But we are all being pushed outside of our comfort zones mentally. There is a lot of information coming out that I'm seeing here. But the information is, like I said, a two-sided coin. So where there's kind of information on one hand, there's going to be a block or restriction coming in on the other, like, you know, the negative and the positive to whatever's coming out or whatever's being said, revealed, or, you know, suggested even. So I feel a lot of people are going to feel really frustrated because they're not going to be able to verbalize what they're truly feeling, which can cause a lot of frustration. So I really do feel that maybe, we can become a little bit self-defensive, or maybe we can jump to conclusions as well. I don't think we should be doing any of that. I think whatever information comes out, just hold it down, because clarity will come. Clarity will be coming from many, but for those who are just coming into clarity, say, um, it's going to be a little bit of a frustrating time trying to get your head around things, and what you're feeling and what you're seeing are going to be two different things. And I think you just need to be aware of that, whether it's in your personal life. I'm seeing this more on a global level. I'm seeing this more in the media, and it's quite political as well, whatever's going on, you know, and with Pluto conjunct the sun. Wow, you know, yeah, I just feel that it's really going to be pushing us into a direction where we're going to really see things for what they are, but it's not going to be pleasant. But, we should never give up hope. We should never give up on ourselves. Do you know what I mean? So again, as Mercury retrograde ends, there's still a lot of pressure on us. So I want to look at the post shadow now, when the post shadow ends. So Mercury post shadow will end on the 7th of February at 5:30 here in the GMT time zone. Now the post shadow will end when Mercury reaches back to 27 degrees, and that's where he starts his retrograde today. So he will reach 27 degrees on the 7th of February. See, my mind's a little bit all over the place today. And I really hope I'm making sense with this, because it's quite a lot to cover. Um, and there's just so much going on in the charts. And I hope I don't kick myself afterwards thinking, oh, I should have said this and I should have said that, because that's what I normally do. But anyway, so as the post shadow ends, Mercury will be in conjunction to Pluto. Now, this is where deep and intense conversations will be had. So we will be in a lot more clarity. Do you know what I mean? It's going to be a very shifting energy mentally. So we're coming to the end of the post shadow of the Mercury retrograde in its completeness. Mercury retrograde is now completed on the 7th of February at 27 degrees, like I said. That adds up to 9. That's an ending of a cycle. And 32 adds up to 5. This is a shifting energy. And, so we are having the conversations that we need to have. And the reason why I say that is because there's no negative aspects to this conjunction. We've just got a sextile with the goddess Vesta and Neptune, who will be direct at this point and will be at 1 degree in Pisces. So this is all about coming into oneness here spiritually. And, the goddess Vesta is all about our passion, especially on the spiritual route. Do you know what I mean? And Pisces is actually a very spiritual sign, but, Pisces is more in the heavens. Do you know what I mean? Even though he's a water sign. The only thing I don't like here is Jupiter at 15 degrees. Now, remember, I think it was as Mercury retrograde began, the moon was crossing over Jupiter, and to me, that was like the Messiah complex. So, whatever was being put out today, you know, whatever's being put out from today onwards, leading up to when the post shadow ends, because there's a lot of good stuff. What I want to say about this Mercury retrograde, there's a lot of good information coming out, but it's being counteracted. And that was the word I was looking for. It's being counteracted by another narrative. Okay. And 15, like I said, abuse of power and karma. So there was good karma going on when Mercury retrograde first begins, which is today. There is good karma surrounding all this. So I don't want everyone to think, oh, it's still really bleak, it's still really dark, it's still a heavy pressure. Yes, it is bleak, dark, and there is pressure, but we must not give up, because at the end of the day, it's all going to lead to positivity. And even though, we've still got things to go through over the next few years, we're getting a lot more clarity, a lot more support. So again, we've still got this yacht aspect, but this time it's here in the UK against our midheaven. And it's in the 12th house, which is more about smaller groups. So I would say this is more about smaller groups and organizations. It's not really commercial or public, overly public. So this is smaller organizations. And is it Mars in sextile to the goddess Juno and Chiron? I really do feel that there's an opportunity to get clarity, maybe around old wounds regarding old relationships, or there's something here, or even the medical industry. There's an opportunity here. I think it looks like compensation, but again, it's got this triggering aspect, like this quincunx leading to the south node. So I really do feel like it's to do with the past. It's not something that's coming up now or something that's occurring now. This is like an opportunity for past actions to be resolved. But for some reason, I feel there's definitely something coming out here or something being revealed, but it's very fast-paced energy. And but it's also very emotional. But I feel it's to do with research and businesses. Something's coming out. I'll look at that a little bit more closely, actually. So I'd like to do a little bit of research into this because I've only just noticed that. But again, as Mercury retrograde ends, he will be in sextile to Jupiter, like I said, which is good. It's good for our intellect. It's good for our spiritual values. It's all about positive thinking. And at 15, I just feel there's some karma coming out here regarding the abuse of power. And there's a lot more clarity coming out. There's a lot more clarity between our conscious mind and our unconscious mind. Do you know what I mean? So we're seeing that here. And like I said, Pluto is very good at research and investigation. And I really do feel, Pluto gets a lot of bad stick actually because he is a really heavy energy. But in this context here, I really do feel that Pluto and Mercury are working hand in hand for the good because the aspects are just so positive. Do you know what I mean? And I think another thing, this sextile with Neptune, with Mercury and Pluto, sextile to Neptune at 1 degree in Pisces, I also think it's really good for strategy as well and prediction. You know, I feel this sextile is really going to help us to see clearly, to gain that clarity, to see beyond that veil of illusion that's been kind of created, if you like, over the last few years. I really do feel a lot of insight is coming by February. And, it just goes to show with this grand cross here that's still going on. Um, Actually, there's two. There's two grand crosses here. Wow! So there's a double grand cross going on here. I mean, one of them. Yeah. Well, no. Yeah, there is definitely two grand crosses. So I really feel like, wow. Even though it's very fiery, I feel it's very fiery what's occurring during this time. But I feel whatever the outcome is, it's going to give us, you know, definitely a change of direction, definitely clarity in our own personal situations. But I also feel globally. Do you know what I mean? We've also got Uranus here moving away from the North Node, which will give us some respite as well. And because, the North Node will eventually move into Pisces, and Uranus, he will be direct. He goes direct in January. He will be entering into Taurus in 2024. But the North Node is actually moving away from Uranus. I mean, we we may see from here onwards that these two don't come so close together, which will be a welcome relief, to be honest, because it's been going on for quite some time now. And this will definitely give us some respite. Do you know what I mean? So I feel February, I mean, also in February, we've got Saturn moving into Aquarius, which also gives us a little bit more freedom. Do you know what I mean? Maybe a little bit of waywardness there, but definitely more freedom. And, Saturn to me represents Anu in the Sumerian kind of mythology, and the sky god, I think it's Geb in Egyptian. And Aquarius actually represents Nama, the high priestess of Tiamat, Nama. And I can't remember what the other one is in Egyptian, but anyway, in Sumerian, Nama and Anu came together in a relationship, and Nama gave birth to Enki, who's also known as Osiris. So, Saturn going into Aquarius isn't a bad thing. Also, Saturn was the original ruler of Aquarius before Uranus was discovered. So, although Saturn's good in his own sign of Capricorn, he can be very dominating because this is Saturn in his kinghood. This is Saturn, the Midas king, um, the strategizer. This is the male decan Saturn. But when he enters into Aquarius, he's entering into the realm of Nama, the woman he actually fell in love with and produced a son with. Do you know what I mean? So I feel he's going to lighten up a little bit, which is a good thing. So I just wanted to mention that as well. So, all in all, once this Mercury retrograde comes to an end, I think we'll all see it as a welcome relief, and we will all gain a hell of a lot of clarity. And whatever negative information out there, or false information, or the false prophet scenario that's going on out there, that will be revealed, that will reveal itself, because Pluto will leave no stone unturned. And this Jupiter square, the goddess Pallas, I mean, in this one of the grand crosses here, where is it? Here. Well, that just shows that no plan can be perfectly carried out. So, there's a lot of poor planning around this, and I have a feeling I know what it's about, but obviously I can't say. But I think you can get a grip on my meaning of what's going on in the world today. But anyway, I'm going to leave it now. But as always, I send you all peace and much love. Take care.